Tier lists are a problem, and the reason I want to say this is because there is a lot of stuff going on in Honkai Star Rail that is changing a lot of the value for a fat ton of characters in this game. And before you go in the comments based on my title, my thumbnail, whatever I just said in the first few seconds of this video, give me a second to explain, because there's just been so much coming out of version 1.3 with all the content coming out, with the release of Dan Heng shifting and destroying the DPS meta. There's just things we're not looking at. There's things that we're not covering in the amount of value that these characters currently have, or the characters could have. And a lot of the kits, a lot of the interesting aspects and details of certain characters are now getting more value because of the simulated universe, because of this difficulty spike. And we're going to be talking about all of that in this video. So going ahead and looking at the end all be all tier list, which I'm just playing around, and this is a really good website, really good tier list for all the people that work on this tier list. Thank you so much. This is a really good website for everything Honkai Star Rail. Make sure to go look at it in the description below. But looking at the Prydwen tier list, we see that Imbibitor Lunae and Luocha is by themselves at S+ tier, and this, in my opinion, I do not like, because right now, in all honesty, Dan Heng being by himself, I don't agree with. Luocha at the current moment, because of simulated universe, because of this difficulty spike, because of some recent enemies that we have in the game, I don't like this. Just because Luocha and Dan Heng right now are at the same tier as a lot of the other characters, because their kits are now more valuable. Dan Heng versus Blade, Dan Heng versus Kafka. This is something that I want to specify when it comes to Dan Heng as a character, because right now Blade can fill a lot more. So can Kafka than Dan Heng can. Let me explain. Blade right now has an SP neutral kit, so this is really good for him because it gives him some flexibility in what he can do. He can be that main DPS with a bunch of supports. That's the same thing that Dan Heng could do, so he can be a main DPS. But because he has an SP neutral kit, he's able to be a sub DPS as well, maybe even a tank with links coming out as well, giving taunt the destruction characters. And with him taking damage, he's going to give you a full wave hit on all the enemies on the field. That's very important to look at. He also has adjacent hitting basic attacks, which is 3 turns for 1 skill point. He has sustain. He gives himself healing off of his follow-up attack and his ultimate when he's lower than 50% HP. He has a lot of things going for him. He has a lot of different roles that he can fill that Dan Heng can't, because Dan Heng is the main DPS and Dan Heng is very skill point heavy, and you get a lot of value from getting that level 3 off, from getting that level 2 off, rather than doing the level 1 or the basic attack, because you're going to get additional scaling based on the amount of crit damage and also getting final damage dealt when you're doing these higher level attacks. So you don't want to basically restrict them to level 1s and basic attacks if you're trying to put him in that sub DPS role. This is something that only Blade technically can do. This is something only Blade can have when being a tank, being SP neutral, being able to solo sustain, to not need a healer that bad because he's gonna have high HP anyway from his scaling. There's just a lot of things that go into Blade's kit and the future potential that you can get from being a sub DPS, from being a tank, that is very valuable in his kit. And not only that, talking about Kafka as well, she has an insane amount of potential that she could potentially bring when it comes to the future dot characters that are going to be coming out, because she can't be taken down. She's always going to be on that team. When there's a new dot character, 4-star or 5-star, she's going to be on that team. When there's a new re-trigger character, she's still going to be on that team, because now you're going to be able to trigger dots twice as much in the same team. And you know how insane that's going to be? Kafka is able to add her own dot. She's also able to re-trigger the dots. There's a lot of things going into her kit that's going to make her an exponential investment to your account if you end up getting Kafka. But if we're looking at Kafka at present day, there's no way we can look at her at S tier. She has to be bumped down to A, because Sele, with her amazing conditions of having her relic set and having the amount of speed that she has, her being able to hit more than 3 targets that Dan Heng can because of her resurgence combo, there's a lot of things that you can look at with Blade, with Sele. There's no way that current day Kafka can be at the same tier as them. And this is why I have a problem with the tier list, because not specifically with this one, but with tier list overall, because there's so many situations, there's so many things to look at in these characters' kits, in these characters' potential, that are going to be hard to quantify at a letter. It's just that simple. Blade, Kafka, Sele all have their amazing uses. So does Dan Heng. But looking at the future investment that Blade and Kafka can bring, Dan Heng is stuck on that main DPS role because he can't sacrifice him being able to not use his 3 level 3s, because he's going to do insane damage with them. And same thing with Luocha. Luocha is alone at S+ tier, which I believe, yes, he was amazing. He was busted. He has cleanse, buff strip, no skill points for his healing. He is overall a busted unit in the defensive section. But now with the new simulated universe, with the difficulty spike in MOC, with the characters that are able to one-shot you, Luocha can't help you with that. If you get one shot, Luocha can't res you. Luocha can't save you if you get one shot. So what characters are going to be benefiting from this? Almost everyone else. Because Bailu, if you do get one shot, you're getting res. You have that second chance. Japard, he gives you a fat ton of shield to the point where if an enemy is going to one shot you, you'll at least be alive because he gave you almost double your health in shield. Same thing with Fu Xuan, who's coming out as well. This is the reason why he can't be S+ tier, because Fu Xuan is also going to give damage mitigation and damage redirection, make sure that your allies almost can never be one-shot. There's a lot of things going on in this game, and especially if Honkai Star Rail decides to increase the difficulty again, get a little bit harder, these characters are not going to stay in their same spot, because a lot of the characters that are able to heal themselves, self-sustain, keep your team alive without having them get to one-shot. There's a whole ton of things going on in this game that you would need 50,000 tier lists to accommodate every single section. And it's a really good thing that the Prydwen tier list separates a lot of these sections, with it being single target, blast, and AoE. That's a good thing, because a lot of these DPSs rank a lot differently when you're looking at these situations. But also, you have to look at the future as well. You have to look at the present day. If you're going to say that Kafka and Blade are S tier and Dan Heng isn't, Blade and Kafka have more potential than Dan Heng, because they're always going to have that team. Dan Heng could technically someday get less damage than another character. That's gonna have to bump him down, right? But Blade and Kafka being a sub DPS, a tank, or Kafka having infinite potential with dot characters in the future, that's really high of investment. That's really high of a thing to say. And if we're not looking at that, Kafka has to be the A, because she doesn't do as much as Blade and Celer right now. Yes, she's super strong, and I'm not saying that they're not strong. Just because they're in A, just because they're in B, doesn't mean that they're not strong. They're just not classing with the same characters that they're in the tier with. Same thing with Luocha. He can't be S+ tier because he can't save you from getting one shot. So characters like Bailu with her kit, Japar with his kit, with Fu Xuan with her kit, these are a lot more valuable now than Luocha. So maybe we might not have an S+ tier anymore for the defensive section for this tier list. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of things changing in this game, and something I just wanted to bring up, because if you look at this tier list, there's way too many situations, especially with the harder content that's coming out, with the future potential or the current potential of some of these characters. I just don't believe that there's S+ tier characters in this game. Everyone has to be capped out at either having multiple characters in S+ tier because of what they do, or having no S+ tier character at all. Just because no one right now, in my honest opinion, is a must summon or a must have, because when they do end up being like that, you'll know. Because I've seen gacha games get to the point where it's a S+ tier character, they're deleting their accounts, they're re-rolling just to get that character because they're the must have. Dan Heng isn't that. Luocha anymore isn't that, because of Fu Xuan, because of the harder content, because his heals are amazing and they're strong. I have mine healing for 6k, but if your character is getting one shot, he's not going to provide value there anymore. We need more defensive kits, and we need more kits that are going to keep you alive, then that are going to be able to heal you when you do take that hard hit. So yes, looking at Luocha, looking at Imbibitor Lunae, there's no way we can keep him there. Looking at these characters like Blade, Kafka, Bailu, Japar, Fu Xuan, they're really high in value now. See how we're changing up and down what we're thinking of characters and what situation these characters can be in. That's why tier lists right now are the hardest to have concrete, because of a million different situations in this game. There's a million different things that can happen in Honkai Star Rail when it comes to the new modes that come out, when it comes to the difficulty increase that will happen, when it comes to them ramping up the difficulty as they are right now. You gotta think about that. I'm not saying that tier lists are bad. It's a really good indicator in how you're going to put a value on a character, so that when new players come, they'll know who's it and they'll know who's not. But right now, it's hard to quantify that when we are seeing a whole meta shift, a whole meta reset, a new shift in a new era for Honkai Star Rail, because now it's not as easy to value characters as it was before, because we have a lot more to think of. So other than that, that's going to be it for this video. I appreciate y'all so much for hearing me out, for listening to this video, because I think it's a really nice topic. I really like the discussion that a lot of content creators are having, or a lot of different personalities are having regarding the situation, because at the end of the day, it's everyone's opinion, and it's really nice to see the different opinions, because I've been talking to a lot of them. I've been seeing what their opinions are, what my opinions are, and pretty much sometimes they align for the most part. But other than that, thank you guys so much for watching all the way to the end of the video. See you on the next one, and peace.